This is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And it's a fine line when you're trying to define the finer points of politics, politics being a Latin word, poly meaning many, ticks meaning blood-sucking bastards. But too many live in countries where it's bullets instead of ballots, where gavels fall like mallets, when held in the hands of those whose judgments can be bought as easily as children can be taught to covet. And the only ones willing to speak up are forced to live so far beneath the radar that the underground is considered above it. This is for the Ho Chi Minhs and the Michael Collinses, for the Marquis de Sade's and the muted gods. This is my voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And this time, it's for the sons and daughters who watch mothers and fathers down in shallows while panning for the American dream in the polluted creek called the mainstream. This is for the homeless people sleeping on steam vents, making makeshift tents out of cardboard and old trash, trying to catch 40 weeks in between the crash of car wrecks, risking their necks by surviving another day so that they can starve, so that famine can carve their body into a corpse, before their heart stops beating so that men in a boardroom meeting can make it harder for them to get welfare or health care. It's no wonder some of them pawn off their own wheelchair, and every time I walk by I can't help but feel at fault that maybe I didn't search myself hard enough for the Control-Alt-S so I could save the world. I've got to cash in my reality check so I can drop the world some spare fantasies, because the most valuable thing I've ever learned is to believe people when they say, please. So don't tell me there are no heroes. This is for them, the women and the men, for Helen Keller, who against all odds found a voice, for the choice Veronica Karen made, for Martin Luther King, who stayed just long enough to share his dream with us. This is for that day on a bus with Sister Rosa Parks. This is for the Joan of Arcs, who believe even in the face of sparks becoming flame. This is for the game Louise Riel refused to play, for the day the Dalai Lama finally goes home, for Jeffrey Wingard, who alone stared down big tobacco, for Nelson Mandela, who continues to go the extra mile, even in death, for the trial that finally found a man guilty of shooting Medgar Evers dead. This is for every Malcolm X and everything he said, remembered by athletes who left the Olympics double-fisted, for Arthur Miller, blacklisted for calling a witch hunt what it was, for Galileo, locked up because he said the earth revolves around the sun, for anyone who was told to be quiet, but instead had their say. And imagine if we could still hear John Lennon play. This is for the someone who stood up today and said no. For Edward R. Murrow, who shut down McCarthy. This is for Salman Rushdie, Mahatma Gandhi, for you, for me, this city, this country. We will always have a choice when we stand up to be counted. Tell the world, this is my motherfucking voice. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, this is my voice. Welcome to Unlearning. There's a small contingent of caramel children in the back, and listening to them, I still feel hopeful about the world. Somewhere between them completely ignoring me because they're all gaming together and saying please and thank yous as we handed them their little mixed nut medleys. There is still hope if we each manage to find our voice. And so let us come back to the board as we always do. But first, I want to spotlight a local fashion brand called K-Fly. Look at my jacket. Once a dancer, always a dancer. This is a framework that I developed a long time ago, and I've been really thinking a lot about leaders and what it is that we have trained leaders to be. Or, I don't know, some of you might work at a workplace where you are very aware that your leader received no training on leadership, right? Grab somebody right now and go, girl, I know, right? Many of you are in therapy because of a poor trained leader that you either report to now or reported to in the past, or you are that leader. Oh? Lindsey, you just calling us out on our shit? We just got started. We're not even in it. Yeah. And so I've been thinking about how is it that we arrived at this collective moment that we are all experiencing. And that could be, you think this collective moment that we're experiencing right now is exactly the moment that you've been waiting for, dreaming about, praying for. Or you're waking up in dread as you watch either yours or your community members' rights kind of disappear overnight. And one of the things that we're seeing in the research again and again is that so many of the leaders that we work with are unable to fail. They are unable to fail well. And so I want to talk about what I mean when I say fail. What does that mean? Because a lot of us, we get stuck in the kind of tech vernacular about fail, right? We're going to fail, and we're going to launch the product, and then we're going to A/B test it, and then we'll fail, and we'll have a new product, and it's very extractive. I'm failing so that I can still be the winner in some way. That's not what I'm talking about when I say fail. When I say fail, grab out your notepads. You probably got one when you came in the door. Get your postcard, get your pens out. I know you've been trained now. Don't come without being ready to take the notes, yes? When I say fail, F, I mean feel it. To feel your failure fully means that you are capable of embodying it. It doesn't just bounce off of you, right? It's when somebody brings you their pain and they say, hey, you failed me in this moment. You didn't see me. I had a need, and you did not meet me here. That ability to take that on and let it move through your body. So many of us are walking around and we are just over-intellectualized heads floating through space. There's no soma meaning body. There's nothing that is actually connecting through the head, through whatever you call the heart or solar plexus space, into the gut. And we all know, yay, research, that the vagus nerve actually has a lot of knowledge that it's communicating up from the gut to the brain. And the brain is like, oh, thank you, vagus nerve. I'm 5 minutes late to the party. And the vagus nerve is like, I had you. That's why you got that little, vomit feeling in your mouth, right? It's no, don't stop, don't touch it, right? To feel your failure is not the same as Brené Brown talks about, to be shamed by the failure. Do you understand the difference, right? You are not a failure when you fail. Your actions require acknowledgement. Now here's a real test. Can I spell this properly? Acknowledgement. How'd I do? Is that correct? Thank you. Oh my God. All of my fourth grade D in spelling fears just moved through. Yes, to acknowledge failure means that I have to feel it. And when I say acknowledge, I mean this thing that I really see so many leaders struggling with right now is the ability to be held accountable. Oh, can I get an amen? Amen. Yes. To be held accountable. And we are struggling with this, and particularly we're going to be talking about this next month. I see a lot of my male leaders struggling with being held accountable, right? And many of them say, Lindsey, I have no frameworks. Nobody ever held me accountable when I failed, right? I was celebrated for failure, but I was not celebrated for making amends. I was celebrated for failure as a sign of my strength, of my potential to be a leader, but I was not held accountable for the harm that I did. I was able to just move forward without offering repair. To acknowledge means I see the pain that I have caused, the hurt and the damage that I have done, and I have let it impact me on a physical level. Do you get that? The next one is interrogate. I'm going to need your help again. Did I do it? Is that it? Are there 2 R's? Thank you. Right? My mother, when she watches this, Mom, thank you for those tutoring lessons. Back in the day, I don't know if you had this, in Pittsburgh, they had like this awesome like tutoring bus that would come to school, and you would go outside, and she normally had cookies, and you would like go, and they made it like you were super special and smart, and they called it like the genius bus, and it wasn't until I was in college that I found out it wasn't a genius bus. I was like, what? They were like, yeah, you were really terrible at spelling. And I was like, I was totally convinced. They were like, all the genius kids go onto the bus. Lies we tell our children. Hey, well, it worked out. Yeah, you know, the cognitive dissonance is real. To interrogate it means, how did I get here? What are the stories from my childhood? What are the collected lived experiences that would lead me to act in this way, right? Many of our failures are not isolated events. There are experiences that have led us to that action. There's a really amazing, I'm going to encourage you to watch it. Neil deGrasse Tyson is having a conversation with another brilliant physicist, and they're talking about, does free will exist? Does free will exist? And what the science is showing us is not as much as you would like to think, right? That really there is so much that you are doing today that is inspired by 11 million events that happen in your childhood, right? From how you were suckled to what type of blankie you had to did you do formula, right? All of those things led to this failure. And if you do not interrogate that, then you struggle to learn from it. Wouldn't it be funny if I didn't spell learn right now? Right? How do you learn from it if you haven't felt it, if you haven't acknowledged it, if you haven't interrogated it? Because to learn from it, to apologize means what? I'm sorry, meaning I am going to endeavor to never do this again. How many of us are guilty of giving a half-assed apology? I'm sorry you felt that way. Right? I'm sorry that you misunderstood what I was trying to say. I'm sorry, and right? That's not acknowledging it. I'm putting it back on you. I'm sorry that you were stupid. I'm sorry that you, right? All of those things. I'm sorry means I get it now. I understand. And I'm not going to do that again to the best of my abilities. We are living in a society now where we have so many leaders who are unable to do any of these things. They cannot feel it, because to feel it would mean that they have to come down from the omnipotent view of objectivity, right, and actually step into relationship with other humans. To acknowledge it means that I see the pain that you are experiencing. There are so many things that we are confused about right now because it's asking us to question, how could you do that? You don't see the pain of ripping that mother away from their child? You don't see the pain of when you yell at that boardroom of individuals who are just doing a job, right? There's no acknowledging it because we're keeping it distant. Why? Because human relationship is messy as hell. To wade into the dangerous act of being in relationship to another human requires tough shit. right? It requires that you are able to interrogate your shadow self, your view of the world, and accept that it is limited. It requires that you apologize and repair. And again, many of us have never experienced this in our own lives. We didn't experience it in our childhood. And so one of the things I say to so many leaders is, if you tell me how you were loved as a child, I can tell you how you lead this company. Right? I was speaking with a leader the other day, and I asked him, who was the alcoholic, your mother or your father? We're just looking at an HR system, Lindsey. And I was like, true, and you have built an alcoholic cycle in this household. The same type of triangulation that we see in an alcoholic system, the same character play, you have become the alcoholic in this system. You have the children, the middle management, all working to try to protect those who are reporting to them, the children, right? And so you're playing out what is comfortable for you. Tell me how you were raised and loved as a child, and I can tell you how you lead. As we move forward in this moment, and I'm so excited to have this panel here as we interrogate how we have become a culture that doesn't even know what truth is useful, right? We're not going to get to the bottom today of which truth is truier, right? But which truth is useful to the practice of society is something that I think we can chew on, marinate in the thinking pot. And I think that there's something in that where we are asking ourselves, how did we get to a place where we are choosing data sets that are not useful to this collective agreement that we have, that we as humans, a social animal, exist better in community. We would rather choose to believe the data set, true or not true, that is not useful for enhancing human connection, healthier communities, well-educated children, taking care of those who are disenfranchised in some way. I think that why, at least myself, that I have been interrogating is that what I am unable yet to fully process is the ways that I have failed. Thank you for that, yeah, right on. No, but that was good timing. It was that I have failed. Was he put in there intentionally to do that right now? Right? The ways that I have failed, and that failure has created this moment that we are living through. And potentially what we can contend with is that it is our collective failure that has created this moment that we are existing within. So on that, let's introduce this amazing panel. Look at this. Powerhouses of Seattle television. How do we get these people? Joy, Brunga, everybody. Before we introduce the panel, I ask you to take a moment and pay homage, which they will absolutely hate it. So do it well. To the great Joy Brungart, who has been our producer and will be leaving us at the end of the week, but who has consistently curated these amazing conversations for us. Yes. In the dance community, Joy, we come and we touch the floor in front of the artist. And this one's for you. Thank you. Amity Addrisi is an Emmy award-winning journalist who has been on a TV studio since she learned to walk. She's been called an expert in connection, uniting people through shared and often humorous experiences. Everybody, please welcome Amity Addrisi.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Yes,
Excited.
fighting traffic.
Hi, everybody. Oh, hey, it's great.
I know, what an
Where am I
audience,
sitting? Where do I
right?
sit?
Sit right here
Okay.
next to me. Angela is a veteran TV journalist and storyteller, known for her in-depth reporting and compelling interviews. Most recently, she co-hosted the award-winning television shows Evening and Take 5 on King 5 in Seattle. Angela Poe Russell works in TV news, where she earned her National Gracie Award and a Northwest Emmy Award. Please welcome the one and only Angela Poe Russell. Thank you for being here. Is Angela's mic on? And we have Marcus Harrison Green, who is the publisher of Hinton Publishing, the founder of the South Seattle Emerald, and a columnist with The Stranger. Growing up in South Seattle, he experienced firsthand the impact of one-dimensional stories on marginalized communities, which taught him the value of authentic narratives. Please welcome Marcus Harrison Green.
Thank you for the invitation.
Wow, wow. So let's get settled here. I mean, you know, we invited you for a very easy conversation today. Nothing big to tackle here. But as we, get cozy, let's start with what is media literacy? And I've put this question to you all before, but I think as we keep wanting to make America great again and go back to, yonder time, what was the media literacy that we used to all have?
You're looking at me.
As always.
This happened?
Yeah.
I don't think my mic is. Oh, wait, am I on?
There you are.
On. Okay.
Oh, if it's working, you can go first.
See what she did there? See what she did there?
No,
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think that the way I see it simply is being able to consume media wisely. That would be the headline. And in a wise way, meaning knowing the difference between knowing opinion versus actual reporting of the facts, being able to understand different outlets, places where you consume news, being able to understand what their processes are like, a little bit about what their process is like. Is this more, again, opinion-based? What are their experience levels? What do they bring to the table? So I would say the bottom line for me is just being able to know a little bit more about your source and whether it's opinion versus facts.
Yes. Has the news changed a great deal over the last couple of years? I mean, yeah.
none of us are working it anymore, so I can't.
So that's how
there's
we
that.
know it's not as good. That's
No,
what we say, yeah.
Yes, to answer your question, it has changed a great deal, and I do think that, Angela hit the nail on the head with the critical thinking skills about, being aware of what you're doing. But it has changed, and it's changed in a level of not just, they don't want to try as hard anymore. It's changed because we're not consuming media in the way we used to consume media. You're not going home and turn on the news at 5 o'clock, or maybe you are, then awesome. But we're getting our media from our phones.
Yes.
That I thought I had with me. I'm so addicted, right? We're getting our media from there. And I actually realized until just a little bit recently that I'm a bit of a curmudgeon. Because the way we were raised up in news, like you went to school, you went to J school, you did this. I even had mentors who had to take a test from the state of California to get a little card to say they could be a journalist. Like there was fierce rules.
Yeah, at school, it was an automatic F if you got one fact wrong.
One fact.
Automatic F.
And you better
You know
know.
how folks be failing right now? Failing. I just heard it this morning. Like, what in the world? I would imagine like, you have a really different perspective because you had this career and then you jump into
Yes.
this space.
Yes, I went from finance to the lucrative world of journalism, obviously. But in all honesty, I mean, for me, I went into journalism at a time because I was tired of being lied to in terms of my community, right? And it wasn't lies of commission as much as it was omission, right? I lived in this place of South Seattle, which I still rep and love. But for the most part, the only thing that they would ever talk about, they being mainstream media sources, was urban blight and crime and violence and so forth. And at the time I was living there, I want to say it was the most diverse zip code in the United States. It had 80-something different languages, 50-something different ethnicities, and you had all this brilliance there. And it was like, why can't we get a full display and full rendering of who we actually are as a community?
Marcus, do you think that engendered an initial distrust for a lot of communities because they were already not seeing themselves represented in the media?
I mean, I think the distrust was from birth in many times, right?
Yeah.
I think, as we used to say at the Emerald, we are in the news business, but we're more so in the relationship business, right? We want, trust is something, particularly in media, that's earned. It's not given, and it shouldn't be, right? And so I would always tell my journalists, imagine that you're in a relationship, right? And the only time you show up is on somebody's worst day or their best day. They either won the lottery or they just, their father died. And that's the only time you visit them, right?
Yeah.
What kind of relationship is that going to curate, right? And so you have to be there at all times, right? Through the ups, downs, the vicissitudes of life, the banal, whether that's just gathering information, meeting folks where they're at. For me, I think that's what has been lost in media because it isn't necessarily lucrative, right? If I'm on the phone with an editor and I'm just at the station coffee house in Columbia City seeing what's going on in the neighborhood, they're like, no, you need to produce copy now, as opposed to, no, I'm here attempting to build relationships with people.
Yes.
Listen, you have no idea how much you just captured my heart. And I say that because I guess my message would be, consume media in places that tell you the whole truth. And the whole truth meaning it's not all bad, and they're seeking relationship with the community.
Right.
They're seeking that real relationship. That, what you just talked about, is exactly why we started Take 5. It was a way of saying, hey, we can't just report this. It's not entirely accurate in terms of what's going on. We want to highlight what's good in all places and still also cover the other stuff too, but it really was about relationship, and it's really hard to sustain those things. And I just want to say I'm so grateful that you did that and that you're still going. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Seriously.
You were trying to jump in. So.
No, I was no, because you said something about, it's that whole immediacy, like you don't have the time. I mean, that is really what news has become because of all these outlets, is that there's no time. You've got to get it out there, be first, be the one. Now, that was also a news mentality for many, many years. That's why we were going like Mach 90 with our hair on fire out in the live truck. But what you said, it's so true, because it's not always about the first, it's about the most thorough.
Right.
And that's what's key, and that thoroughness is that relationship building, is that sitting across from somebody and really seeing that person and listening.
Yes.
People look at a show like Evening, that it's not news in terms of the marketing, and they think, oh, it's just food and it's just restaurants and that kind of thing. But dig a little deeper. You actually watch the stories, and it is more news than we get on most places.
Yes.
It's like I just watched Princess and the Frog again. So my mama Odie said, dig a little deeper. You got to dig a little deeper. And so you watch shows like that just get gutted because it's the whole, fear mentality. And yeah, it's concerning. So that's why I'm like, yes, let's support people in places like South Seattle.
There's a few news stations I'd like you to take over.
Yes. On that, what do we do? It seems as though people are really not looking for the full story anymore. They want the story that aligns with their preconceived version of the truth.
Because it makes them feel safe.
It makes them feel safe. Say
Because the world is crazy and news is depressing and it's coming at you 24/7 and it's never good. Like when I look at things on my Instagram, like the one time I clicked on something that was kind of disturbing, and the million times I click on kittens, what do I get? More disturbing things. And so news is throwing all these depressing things at you. So when you're scared, you're like, I don't want to. So it's easier to go to something that maybe is a little bit more in line with what you think makes you feel safe, even if it's a lie.
And I'm just thinking, I hope you're wrong. I want to believe that it's a minority of people that just want to hear what they want to hear. I want to believe it's a minority. I hope that we all can have enough humility, all of us. I don't care where you are in the political spectrum. Have enough humility to say, do I have the whole picture? I actually will watch Fox News and some other places because I want to hear what they're saying. And I want to hear a different perspective, even if it's lies, whatever it is. I want to hear it. I think we all should leave enough room for maybe not having the complete picture.
I heard somebody in the audience say, wow, when you said,
How could you do it?
even I'll watch Fox News. Working through my internalized bias and judgments. So I think this is a great lesson. So when you are watching it, how do you discern through what is useful media that is storytelling that you can learn from and apply versus something that's not that?
Well, first, I realize when I'm listening that there's a particular, first of all, it's what you leave out. If you consume multiple sources, you know that something's being left out. And the same thing on the other networks. I can say they're leaving this part out. But if I don't ever consume Fox, I'm not sure what the others are leaving out.
Right.
And so it's also interesting to hear the narrative or the thing that's being spun. If you don't know what they're thinking, how do you even try to counter it or respond to it?
Or have the conversation.
Or have the conversation. I mean, I remember when these tariffs started to happen, and the threats of the tariffs, then of course it happened. And the angle on Fox was that, this is when we first started hearing the short-term pain, long-term gain, don't care about the 401ks, it's gonna make us better. We're gonna start, building robots. And there's a thread of an issue that they're usually trying to address. But I find it very helpful. I mentioned this on the last broadcast that you conducted. Multiple sources are key.
Yes.
Even if you strongly disagree, being able to hear what they're saying empowers you.
Yeah, I think I would just add, right, to what you're saying. It's a Malcolm X quote that, the truth is the truth no matter who's telling it. And I think what's hard in our society.
I brought my notebook.
It is not.
Yeah, everybody-
No, it is not.
Say the
give
truth
us
is
more.
the truth no matter who's telling it. Say more.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I just think that ultimately, particularly in this society, right, we, not to try to paraphrase the film A Few Good Men, right, but we haven't been taught how to handle the truth, right? The truth is something, it does not owe us comfort. It does not owe us any type of solve. It just owes us itself and what it is. And I think that manifests itself so often in I'll just put men on trial, we don't, for men who don't know how to say no, don't know how to accept no, for instance, right?
Yeah.
People who don't know how to accept rejection. I mean, I think that's why you see a rise in things like this manosphere stuff going on. I think that ultimately we have to, critical thinking is of course important, but also just the realization that sometimes we need to sit with the discomfort of the truth, and we can't constantly be distracted. We can't constantly scapegoat other folks. We have to fully know how to absorb the truth, I think, from an early age and that will help us, I think, as we continue to grow, older, and as opposed to being adults who try to, flee the truth and believe that, constantly telling lies over and over is in some ways a simulacrum of the truth.
Yeah. But what if, I mean, lies feel so delicious, right? Like, I love, unicorns and rainbows and everything, right? Like, what is the addiction to the lie? What have you seen? Why is that something that people would,
And what just came to me is it soothes us from our fears.
yeah.
And so I love it when it comes to me and then I have to try to explain how it comes. If I'm fearing people taking over, then you can, or you're taking over the spots in the colleges, or you're taking all the jobs, or you're taking the resources, then I'm more likely to believe when someone brings up that idea, I am more likely to buy into it because I have this fear.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
That's what, yes. And that's what I was trying to say with the safety. Is because of that fear, you're so scared of, like you said, someone's going to take my thing. I'm going to go trust that guy who's going to make me feel safe. And it really is. It's that fear, that safety, that all of it is why the unicorns and rainbows are so great.
Yeah.
Because those unicorns and rainbows are safe. It's hard to be in that space and go, it's like you were saying earlier before we came out, it's that acknowledgement. It's hard to go, oh, I was wrong. Or I had no idea. I had no idea that this happened. My bias had been this for so long. My privilege had been this for so long. I had no clue. That's a hard mirror to look in, and you either do or you don't. And a lot of people, the cost is so high for them emotionally and personally. That's why a lot of times on the show New Day, what I did for years, and even on the anchor desk, I was never trying to tell people, like, this is what you should believe and this is what you should think. I would be like, hey, you want to know about something like this? And just, like, ease it in so it wasn't so aggressive so that people could go, oh, that's safe.
And I would try to hit him over the head.
Yeah, good. I'll spoon feed, you hit.
No, I'm sorry.
We need both sides.
I'm wiser.
We need both sides, yeah. Well, Amity, with you have also come up through this medical data and, a lot of research that was in your early career informed a lot of what you were reporting.
Yeah.
How do we tell the difference between the sources that led to sophisticated journalism versus, oh, well, my daddy said, and so, that's my source and that's my quote, right?
Right.
What is that? I want us to really strip it back to the basics. What is a good data source?
Okay, so this is actually a very interesting question because I left my job as a capital J journalist during the pandemic because it was too much. It was so hard to, first of all, we were getting data from all these different sources, and a lot of them you couldn't trust, and a lot of people, I'd never in my entire 30 years of doing journalism had ever seen a medical issue, a pandemic, become a great divide. And I was just shocked that it became a political issue and not a medical issue. And I'm scrambling. I was the only medical health reporter at the time, scrambling to try to get the information out and sharing it. And that was really hard because, there is so much distrust in so many ways. Some folks distrust because medical and science was used against them. Some people distrust because they feel like their rights are being taken away because of medical and science. So I work for a science institute now, and I'm blessed to work there and be able to really see the data and go, there's really nothing in it for us. We are literally just presenting data. We do foundational science, which is basically like there's a dirt road, we pave it, and everybody else can drive the car down it quickly. And so there is that, but for me specifically, because I've worked for many years in that sphere, it's very, very hard once it has become politicized, which it has. And so, you were talking earlier about watching Fox News and doing these things, and I've been gently bringing up to my coworkers that we need to actually start thinking about all sources of news to share because we really need to rebuild a trust overall, and it's going to be a long road because...
Yes.
So we shouldn't trust when we're scrolling and we see the Instagram thing.
Although, Yeah.
The scary part is you could actually link a real article from the Journal of American Medicine, you can show the research, and there are some that are like, well, I don't believe it. I mean, I would like to think that to your question, like, look for those links that take you to places that actually explain their research, how many people were studied, were there 5 people in the study, were there 1,000 people in the study, if it's something you really care about and want all the information.
1,000 is better.
Yeah, 1,000, 1,000 is better, a few more.
Oh, but you were saying something when we were in the green room, and you were talking about the ways that, there used to be an expectation when you said you were a journalist. And, we can get really weird about credentialing, like, oh, you're keeping people out, and, and that's very real. But now it seems as though there might be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth because you said it so beautifully in the back, but you don't see the same desire to even be a good journalist.
Oh, I think what I was talking about is I used to think that, just like any field, people are human and they make mistakes. And, even when you take your job seriously, I certainly have, I still remember them when I was in DC and made a mistake and gave someone an improper title, and I still feel horrible about it. And so I like to think that that's most journalists. But what I was sharing is that now I'm starting to suspect that there are a few that are maybe intentionally leaving things out. And that really worries me. That really worries me. I mean, even if we look at this recent, you all have been following these, I don't even want to call them deportation flights. They're disappearing people.
Yes. Yeah.
With no due process, right? So we had that going on recently. I'm very concerned about that. And the Supreme Court gets involved. And the headline is that the Supreme Court's going to let the flights continue. Was that the headline everyone heard? Okay. There was a little bit more to it, but I wouldn't have learned that if I hadn't consumed different sources. And the other caveat that says, but they have to have a hearing first,
Right.
which is very different than if you read the headline from, and this is credible places that we're saying, I mean, the ones that you would think are the good ones. I mean, because that headline could have read, Supreme Court puts up some guardrails to these deportation flights, right? It could have been held that way. So I just worry that I'm starting to worry it's intentional, and that really, I don't want to think that way.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I think our only protection, if it's something we care deeply about, to make sure you check, more than one source. And actually, when they say, oh, this is the ruling, just click the link to the ruling, and see it for yourself.
Yes.
We have to say woke. Say woke, because there's a lot coming out.
Edit it out later. I'm not sure we're allowed to say that word anymore. Yes.
Can I just follow up on what she said really quickly? Because I think that's the thing that I'm seeing so sadly, and why I so respect what you do. And I love that, because it's what we did see. And I remember in the 90s it was happening more and more. It was like, it was all about breaking news. Who could be there first? It was all about the breaking news. And I mentioned that earlier. But I think that because local traditional media, the sources that we do trust, the sources that you were shocked that had that headline, have actually compromised themselves to still get those clicks. And that's just the long short of it. That's why I'm grateful for you.
Yeah. Now, here's another possibility. The other challenge in journalism, like when look, I don't want to age our, well, I do, I'm own it. Okay.
All right,
yes.
all right. All right, let it all out there.
Okay. We've been doing this a while.
It don't crack. It don't crack.
That's it. Thank you. Oh, now I love him even more.
You're somewhere between 30 and 89.
There you go.
Something.
When people don't realize, like, journalists have superpowers, that we dip into these worlds, and within hours we become an expert on the topic and can tell you all about it. And when we first started in the business, you'd start your day at 9 a.m. By 5 o'clock, you'd have a report. And slowly it started to change. Well, now you have to have a report at noon, 4, and 5. Okay. Oh, now you need to write a digital story and have a report at noon, 4, 5, 6, and they need to look different.
And you forget the social.
Oh yeah, and now you also need to post on social media. So so when I first started in the business, we actually could have a lunch break. Now there are no lunch breaks. There are no lunch, because when you're having to turn stuff that quickly with no additional resources, journalists are slammed. And so you are feeding a monster. So leaving grace and space, if you're just trying to come up with a headline, you just saw the ruling, first to get it up, right? So you can get the click first and people will share it. It's hard to really be thoughtful about how you frame things when
Yes.
more responsibilities, fewer resources, and paid less. The
Yes.
salaries, ooh, the salaries. And so it's been really, I think people who want to be able to afford to live a middle-class life, like my daughter said she was interested. I was like, no. It's very noble, but you're like, all right. Yeah.
Marcus, I'm wondering, a lot of times when we're talking about media literacy, it's because we're pointing the finger at somebody else, right? Like, you're illiterate,
Right.
and I am the expert.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, how would you advise somebody, coach somebody, when you're having that conversation with Uncle so-and-so and Auntie and Grandma?
Oh, that was last week.
Ooh,
No, I'm just joking. No.
Everybody said discuss.
No, no, I mean, I have a nephew who I love to death, but he, quote unquote, does his own research on things. And so he still believes that a certain president, it was for reparations still for black folks, even though it appears, and I have evidence that he is not.
the current one.
Yes, the current president, yes. And,
heard that.
and so, I mean, it's very hard, right? Because you have this sort of fortress of ignorance many times that people find impervious. And, while I joke about it, I mean, I've done reporting for families that have been destroyed, that they cannot even talk to their son anymore. And, because he is so, down this rabbit hole, and they don't know what to do because he's been so radicalized.
Yes.
And so I think you can just continue to be there for a person. Again, it's a relationship, right? And you can continue to be in relationship with the person.
So you don't bang over the head and actually, so you wouldn't favor cutting off the relationship or?
I mean, there's some times where if it's a point of, this is really impacting my mental health right now, we need to take a break and I need to love you from afar.
Yes.
But
and you might need to do that.
So ideally, but this is the way you approach this. Go ahead and finish. Sorry. Go ahead and finish.
No, but
didn't cut 'em off.
No.
All right.
I did not, because there's the bridge is rickety, shall we say, but it's not completely burned. And I think you have to have a discernment of, okay, can we still travel a ways in terms of reciprocity, or is this completely done? And you just have to hope and have faith in some ways that if you need to cut them off for a little while, that you leave the light on, because perhaps they'll come back on.
So I just have to know though, so when you talk to him, do you try to present counter research, or is it?
I didn't try everything, Angela. I didn't try Jesus. I didn't try, and I'm an atheist, so that was a lot. But no, I mean, I've tried everything. I've sent him links and everything else, and he still hasn't budged. And it comes to a point where it's like, I have done everything that I can do, and now I need you to do something. Because in any relationship, right, it takes, even if I'm going 70%, the other person has to go 30.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. But it does bring up that question around, like, if you can't go get your people, then who is going to go get them?
Oh.
Yeah. But it is a labor of love, it sounds like.
I love that. Leave the light on. Yeah.
I'm wondering, as we prepare to move out in the world, and you having these histories, moving through this field and watching it change, growing up in it, all three of you, what would you advise your children, your nephew, your niece, your neblings?
My neblings.
Yeah.
I like that.
About how might they practice?
I have to say, earlier when I mentioned I was a curmudgeon, I have to say, what I've realized of late is, and it tails off of what you were saying about being media literate and being critical, thinking critically about things and having a wide scale. But it wasn't until recently that very recently, that I started seeing the benefit of the citizen journalist. I mean, Omari, he was out there in CHOP, and that
Verge Media, yeah.
Verge Media changed the way that story was being told and educated King 5 on how we should be telling that story. And so I don't think, now I went through TikTok in preparation for this panel, and I went, woo, there's a lot of crazy out there. But there was a few, and I asked some of my friends that I know that are intelligent, that are discerning, that are former journalists, like, what are you watching? Like, what are you looking at? And then one of them's under the table news, or under the desk news. Yes, yes,
Is that
right?
good? Under the desk?
Love.
Okay.
Love. And I'm like sitting there now, I'm like, well, and now I'm following. I'm like, okay, well, that's what it means. And it really is a fair example of saying, like, this is what it is. So I think that the rise of the citizen journalist needs to be taken a lot more seriously. It is hard because as journalists, we were, the FCC had our eyes on us. If I went out there and said aliens are coming, they would find me so quick and I would get fired even quicker. And we don't have that for social media. Don't get me started on that issue.
Yeah, another show.
I mean, they have the FTC, but there's nobody watching. So if you are informing yourself, if you see something, is that right? And just a Google search and start looking into things, you'll dig deeper. But I do think that the rise of the citizen journalist should not be underestimated, because news needs to go somewhere.
Yes.
What are we going to do? How are we going to get it?
And see, this is where you and President Trump agree.
Oh.
But I mean, why was that scary? I mean, that's the whole point, right? The administration came in and they're like, hey, we want to make more space for some of these independent journalists. Now, do I agree with what they're calling?
Don't kick out the AP and Reuters.
Right. No, I agree. But I'm making the point that they see value in that too, although we can question why they're picking the ones they're picking. Absolutely. But you see my point.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. You're right, that is a good
we
thing.
can agree on, right? I mean,
Yes.
please, okay, I'm just concerned you all are like reading wrong, but it just is what it is. I just wanted to highlight that.
No,
I
but
think
it is
that's
actually-
a point of agreement
Yes.
with slight deviations in how it happened.
That is the subtitle.
Yeah.
Subtitle.
I guess I would say maybe less even on the citizen journalism, and I think it's more of community journalism that I think is the rise, because I think so often, right? People talk about media and the news, and they grow cynical, and they're like, oh, there's nothing good in the news cycle, and I think that that's bullshit in the sense that if you look at where hope is, it is in communities, right? It's communities you cover, right? Every single day, there's somebody overcoming in a community. Every single day, there's people falling in love. Every single day, there are mutual aid networks. Every single day, there are people getting together. Every single day, there are networks, right? And they're happening right here in our communities.
Yes.
And so, for me, I mean, I think we need, there are journalists who many times they say they're trying to change the world. I'm like, just try to change one life, right?
Oh.
I remember when I first started the Emerald, and I was, this is maybe 3 years into it, and my family, we had just, we lost our home, and I'm in a 6-bedroom apartment on a mattress with, 6 other people, and I'm like, is this worth doing anymore? And there was a young man, his name was Michael Flowers, and he was killed in a home invasion when somebody invaded his home. And there was an article that was, I won't name the paper, but there was an article that was done in a daily newspaper here at the time, and it read as if he was the one who was responsible for his own death. Right? It talked about his past, felony convictions, so on and so forth. It omitted him being a great father. It omitted him being a basketball coach. It omitted him being a teacher. And so community members asked the Emerald, and who was just me at the time, to do an article about Michael's life, and I co-authored it with my mom, and it ended up talking about, it didn't make him to be a perfect angel, because we're not, but it made him into a 3-dimensional human being, which we all are. And it got the organization to apologize, but thing that has been most important for me in these last 8 years is that every Christmas I get a text from his mother, Mary, and his daughter, and they say just thank you for doing that, because in this time, in this holiday, it reminds me of him, and I get to remember him, and he lives again, to her. And so for me, it's like that's the power of journalism, right? That it's not the Pulitzer Prizes, it's not these awards, it's the reward of being able to be here for your community.
Wow, I love that.
With that, we want to invite people up to ask some questions of Amity, Angela, and Marcus. You can come to the mic there. It's a race. The race is on.
So I want to weave together this notion of failure that Lindsey was talking about at the beginning and journalism, because we have created a society in which, with failure and cancel culture, like you're not allowed to make a mistake. If you make a mistake and you get canceled, there's no path back. We have tribalism where nobody can admit. I mean, I served in the state legislature in a time when there was bipartisanship. Republicans had good ideas. Like, we need to work together. And I will make this quick and in the form of a question. And so I was listening. But I think that journalists have to do that too. And I would like your thoughts on, I listened to an author interview on Fresh Air recently. There's credible data that all those lockdowns did nothing. That states that, like ours, that had really serious lockdowns, and Florida, in the end, about the same number of people died, that like it just, and as I thought about asking this question, except I knew Lindsey would protect me, I was a little scared in this place, in this, what I perceived to be this crowd, to say, maybe we didn't need to do that, and our kids sure as hell suffered.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be afraid to have to say, that's the
Right?
thing, right?
But I'm a good liberal, but I am gonna say, maybe we were wrong. And I will tell you the only place, and so there's been a book written, credible people, I've heard one interview on Fresh Air, and I would love your thoughts about how we are supposed to be media literate when the media doesn't seem to be always media literate. That's my question.
And I love that, and thank you for that, because I will say, I agree. Both of my children, who won't be watching this, so it's okay, they're both like really struggling in school right now because of, it really impacted their lives. But I will say, we didn't know what we didn't know. And I remember being on the front lines. I remember when they made me do a live shot outside. Remember where they were keeping everybody when those first few, it was like a camp with like the thing, it was horrible. And they were like, Amity, go there. And I'm like, oh my, you didn't know. We didn't know anything. And I do know that the state, not maybe the state, but the city leaders and the city people I spoke with at the time when I was like, really, are we doing this? And they were just like, we don't know. So I don't think it was like a conspiracy that, but it also became politicized, right? Because in Texas, everyone was going to school. And so it did become politicized, but I think that maybe what I would like people to take from this pandemic, from the lockdown, is that it's okay to question, right? It's okay to question, even the vaccine bit, right? So I had Bell's palsy last year, and I had a very credible medical person come to me and say, do you think it had to do with the vaccine or that you had it? And I think that whether we know or not, it's okay to have that conversation. Let's ask, let's talk about it. Let's do the research and find out.
Yes.
But that's brave.
Yeah, to the question of how are we to be media literate when it feels like the media is not always, in your view, kind of hitting the mark. It's a big question. The first thing that comes to mind is making sure that we're not part of the problem by sharing, like when I talked about getting that F in college, the two questions I always had to ask was, is this true and how do I prove it? And so the same thing before sharing anything, is this true and can they prove it? Like, what are they pointing to? And so I think taking that extra step, realizing that, because I do think there was a time when you saw something on the news and you just believed it, right? There was that time. So I think as long as you know is, okay, this is interesting information. All right, well, okay, you take that in and you don't necessarily have to go, share it far and wide until you've been able to kind of verify. And I don't mean to make it so like it's so much work for you, because it sounds like, wow, this is a part-time job. But if there are particular issues that are really important to you, that wouldn't be as difficult to do. And there are more organizations doing deep dives on specific topics, and they'll actually give you the source. One thing that the ownership of King 5 started doing, which I actually appreciate, was called the E-Verify segment. And they would take certain things, they would show you what their source was, their resources, they would interview people, and it's all done for you. NBC News Daily just started, they called it Simply Speaking. It's something, anyway, it's something that basically takes a big topic and again, gives you the sources and really shows you the transparency. And honestly, now that I think about it, I think that is the future of reporting, where we come out and say, here's the headline, and let me tell you how we came to this report. Here's who we talked to, here are our sources. And that would make, I think, us all feel a little bit better if we just bring you into the process. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with you too. I don't know what. Do I need to add anything? No, I mean, I would just say, like any other institution, right? You need to hold media accountable, and you hold it accountable because hopefully it will do better. And so, I think ultimately, whether it's you said what Fresh Air, it's NPR, a lot of it is funded through our public taxpayer money. I mean, hold them accountable when you see something or listen to something that you think hasn't been verified or hasn't been fact checked, or the fact that they're omitting something. It's our tool, so it's public media for a reason.
Fun fact, I got my job at Cairo Radio because I called as a listener one day and complained about one of it's so true how it happened.
It surprised me.
Yeah. Well, one time in history, a black woman got a job from complaining about something. I'm happy.
And they not long after fired him, right?
They were like, we didn't know this was going to be a trend.
First, thank you all for being here. It's great to hear your perspectives. I have a question, and I'm going to explain why I'm asking it. It's not going to be a diatribe. The question is, how do you stay objective? I could not. I was a journalist for 15 years. My undergraduate degree is in journalism. I interned at a Metropolitan Daily where I worked for 7 years, then did freelance work. And I had to get out because I just I wanted to tell my truth, not their truth, because what I was hearing so often was clear and utter bullshit. And how do you clean it up? So
How do you clean it up?
when we have become, over the years, when I went to journalism school, Boston University, objectivity was everything. Today, advocacy journalism has taken over. And it's so easy to see through. So my question is, how do you stay objective, especially when issues are polarized and you feel, I really don't want to say that? I could never report on Trump today. I could not do it.
It's tough. Is it okay if I jump in?
You go right ahead.
Is it okay if I? Okay. This is good. So how I dealt with it is I created the commentary space. And so created my own space where I could just tell you, this is my opinion, and I'm going to tell you where I'm getting the information for my opinion and my sources for my opinion. So I created that space. And spaces where I have to report and be objective, it starts with acknowledging my feeling that I'm really biased right now and this is how I feel. And so I'm going to have to take opposite action And it doesn't mean I tell anyone something that's not true, but I will say, here is the argument that is coming from, but to leave their argument out just would not be the objective thing to do. I think you make such a good point because there's a difference between being an advocate for people who maybe don't have a voice or a perspective and an activist. And I think if you're trying to be an activist, go do commentaries. I often think about politicians, and I struggle with, if you're trying to be a politician to be an activist, the thing you should be an activist about is not your one pet issue, but about for the people that you serve. And I just think when you go into these spaces that serve the public, everyone is better off if we're able to just feel your bias, feel the pain, and then make that choice to make sure you present where others are coming from without lying.
Yes.
You know, so that's how I creating that commentary space helped me with my emotions, because then you have a space where I'm telling you this is my opinion, being transparent, and you're able to get it out.
To explain, so I don't know if you've ever heard Angela share that commentary space. You can Google it and it'll come up. I don't, and it's just, it really was a great space for you to, it was like this, just you sharing it, and it was always in a place where you were so authentic and forthright about, this is my opinion. And I could see how that, now not, journalists can't always do that, right? You know, and when I was a journalist, I thought I got this side of the story, I got this side of the story, and I put them together, and yay me! You know, I was like, I thought I was, and it wasn't until 2020 when I started realizing, in conversations with you about like what is back there in that bias, that I realized I don't know that as human beings, down to our core, that we can, but we can try to do our best, right? We can try to have rules. This is where, sometimes you do need a news station. You can have rules to say, if you're going to have this Republican, you have to have this Democrat. You have to have both sides. Like, that's important, because as humans, we're fallible. We can't make sure that we're doing it right, but acknowledging it is half the battle, and then maybe making sure that you're doing your best. Like, for example, I'm a victim of childhood sexual assault. I had to do a story once about something that happened here, and I was getting so angry and I was already writing my story. And I walked into my news director's office and I said, I recused myself. I can't do this story. And I had to recuse myself because I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I know that there's been several studies that have been done, and Lonnie, I will get it for you. I owe you coffee, by the way. But anyway, but it's shown that it's impossible for humans to be objective. But what we can be is fair. What we can be is accurate. What we can be is transparent about our knowledge gaps. What we can be is, again, also honest about our bias. I remember being at Yes Magazine. I was their diversity fellow because I guess I couldn't just be a regular employee. I had to be a diversity. But anyway, I remember.
Love that.
I remember talking to. I think he was like the head of the Young Black Republicans, and it was around. And I remember asking him. I was like, if Donald Trump is the nominee, do you think he'll be, best for women and black people? And he was like, absolutely, he'll be better than everybody. And I was like, obviously my connection messed up, and I didn't hear him correctly, or he didn't hear me. So I mean, I asked him again, and he said, yes, absolutely, unmistakably, right? And so at the end of the day, I mean, I was like, Negro, please, but at the end of the day, I had to present him. I mean, he's still a human being, right? I still had to present him for what he said. And yeah, I had my little commentary around it. But at the end of the day, I owed him his truth and his honesty.
I owed him his truth.
It's hard, yeah. Thank you.
Great job. That was fantastic, Brandon. So I'm sure all of you are around the next generation. You see the kids coming up, you hear them, you listen to them. Do you think things are positive? Do you have hope for the literacy they're showing, or are you worried?
I actually started just because I was saying the other day, so we were driving somewhere, and I was saying something about going on summer break and where we might go, and Taylor goes, just completely deadpan. She goes, I hope we go somewhere in the Gulf of America. And then she kind of side-eyed at me, and I was like, that is a supremely executed joke.
Yeah.
You know, like, so they're watching it, they're engaged, but I think it also, we're having this very specific experience here, and I know that my children are having a very specific experience here that could be very different from their cousins in Lynchburg, Virginia, and what they're consuming, and yet I find that there is a willingness to engage in that relationship that I feel as though we were not taught when we were children, right? Like, you know, my kids will come back to me and tell me a news story, and I'll go, where is that from? And they're like, oh, I was reading it in the Japan such and such. And I'm like, were you reading it in Japanese? And they're just like, oh, I'm done talking to you. But I don't know, are you experiencing this too? There's something about the way that their media experience is so imbued with different stories and different ways of storytelling.
Absolutely. The thing I would say I'm concerned about is, and again, I'm not around a ton of young people, so my sample pool is a little bit small. I do worry about they're big into the whole cancel thing. Like when I was growing up, we could have, you sometimes didn't know people's political opinions or whatever. And so it is kind of a concern that I see sometimes in the young people. They're like, you're down for this, I'm cutting you off and I'm out. And so I do worry about that. But how do you see it? Because you're probably around a lot more young people than I am.
Well, I'm with young people now. It's
Okay, let's go with that. See.
All right. Am I having a hot flash?
I think.
But the even younger people who I'm
Yes.
around. No, I say I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who
Yeah, you better
talks
slide
about.
that in right
yes,
now.
I did not want to get cussed out tonight. So no, but I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who she practices having dialogue and conversation with, I call him my stepson. We're not married, but someday. But with my stepson, in terms of like the media that he consumes, she unpacks it, and like whether it's a movie, whether it's a film, whether it's a book, what have you, to try to gain, try to allow him to gain some level of understanding and discernment, and to teach him not what to think, but how to think.
Yes.
And so I see that not just, thank you, applause for Danielle.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think I'm hopeful in the sense that I see more parents doing that and more children garnering that depth of understanding.
Yeah, no, you're reminding me, you might love this, my kids will always, if we're watching some sort of movie, they'll go, oh, geez, yes, we saw that the person who's playing the bad character, that their skin shade is darker, right? And so they'll like stop me before I even say it now. They're like, just let us watch the movie. They're like, yes, we see the gender norms. Okay, eat some popcorn. So, there's so much language I didn't have as a child now that I can give to them. Yeah. It just felt strange and yucky when I was a child that now we can say to them.
Well, and I'll keep it short because I know we got more questions. But basically, it's question it, everything. I was actually standing in your kitchen, and you said somebody said something, and you go question why you feel that way, or question it. So I think that you're right. These kids are questioning things more. They do have the language, and I do have this secret fantasy hope that news will become something again someday. But I don't know what it's going to be. So I do hope. I do have ideas, but there's no time for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so that I'm not the one that gets in trouble about this, we only have time for one more question. Do you all want to fight it out?
And it's me.
I
don't want to fight nobody.
I'm so
What
sorry.
if we keep our answers short?
Yes, but if you email your questions to us afterwards, I can make sure that it gets to these very beautiful panelists. Go ahead.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you guys. What?
I was just going to say, look at this beautiful question asker here.
Well, thank you. I hopefully have a beautiful question. But thank you all. It's been an incredible evening, incredible discussion. My question is, looking at how we currently consume media, whether that's mainstream media or social media or however we consume it, and the way that it's being broken off into factions and people breaking off into their own camps and really shutting everything else out. And like you alluded to earlier, Angela, a lot of the stuff that even our mainstream journalists are putting out is for clicks and likes and for that. Each one of you, I want to know, honestly, without even trying to put a rosy picture on it, how do you see the future of media being consumed? Are you optimistic about it or are you more pessimistic about it?
He's only asking this because he's seen Amity Unplugged before.
I have, that's
Terry, it's such a hard one to answer because I think that there is part of me that does want to throw her hands up in the air and just, I left media, so I'm done now. But then I realized, no, there's still this huge weight of importance on being someone who says, no, we do need to fight for something more. I may not be on television anymore, and I may be in a different place, but I'm going to continue to fight for the fact that we have journalism resources and outlets because we do need to. And I'm grateful for people like Lindsey, who this is a great resource. I mean, whether we know it or not, this is a form of journalism, and this is a form of sharing these things. So yes. And so because of people like you, Terry, I see you share yourself so authentically online that I trust anything you say. But yeah, no, I think that's the thing, is that it's just, it is hard, but I'm hopeful. And I think it does come from authenticity. I think it comes from honesty, and I think it comes from being brave.
It's a big question. So there are two parts to it. And I'm reminded of, there was a Supreme Court ruling I was reading, I think it was related to TikTok and AI, and it concluded with a Supreme Court justice said that they humbly couldn't predict the future of what this could be. And so I'm going to take a nod from that and say I humbly can't predict the future of what it could be, but I mean, I know the directionally, right? We're like the citizen journalists, all the things that are happening on the phone. In terms of optimistic, I have to choose hope, because just like with anything in life, there are storms, there are sunny days, and I think we're in a storm right now. We're in a storm, and I think we can bring this back, because when you lose something, you realize how important it is.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to rise and fight for it. And so I say, journalism with the big J is going to evolve and get it even better because of this dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like James Baldwin said, I'm hopeful because I woke up this morning, right? And, I think through every step of the way that we've had, the delivery mechanism of media has changed, right? Whether it was the printing press or the radio or the TV and now social media, every step of the way, people have, talked about the death of media, and yet it's managed to evolve somehow and to adapt. And I think we will continue to evolve and adapt. I will say I would be more hopeful, though, if we could possibly, as much as you can in a capitalist society, minimize the profit motive for journalism. Because I think we have a situation now with a lot of bloggers and influencers and so on and so forth, where the truth for them is not commercially viable. And so that's why you have so much outrage and lies and so forth. If we could have a public media system, and I'm definitely somebody who's down for some level of public financing that has an accountability mechanism, I think that would be true hope for me.
Yeah.
The BBC.
Yeah.
The BBC's model. We could do that. Well, I don't know right now, but.
Well, as I'm listening to the three of you, I'm reminded that at our core, we are a storytelling animal. That is how we pass down knowledge, right? And there is something that we will always return to in this basic need to say, I learned something. I tried that. It failed. Saber-toothed tiger, run. These mushrooms don't eat, right? We return to that again and again as a species, as our survival. And journalists are people that we have propped up to say, we trust you to kind of shepherd the survival, to compile all of that information. And so I don't see the work ever disappearing, because we will always be, where like, I was just gonna put the mushrooms in my mouth, but if you're gonna tell me, don't eat the mushrooms with the pink dots on it, great, right? I could also run an A/B test, dead or alive. Too much?
No.
Scientists, right? If you are interested in engaging in more conversations like the ones that we are having today, and would like to engage in conversations like this where we don't run out of time, the team at LTHJ Global and I are so happy to be rolling out our learning labs, which are going to kick off as early as June 2025. If you turn your postcard over, there is a QR code where you can go and either register to join me this Friday to learn about the first learning lab that's going to happen here in Seattle, June 20th through 22nd, or to find out about the learning labs that we're going to be rolling out throughout the rest of the year and across the country. So this is certainly not goodbye to the talent, the brilliance, the open-hearted expertise that you have been receiving tonight. So reach out and find out about those. I want to see all of you stepping into what is your voice and how are you going to use it to create a world where Big J journalism rises from the ashes. Give this panel a hand.